building awareness about adoption in and from India, across the country, and in several other countries. Co-founded by Sahana Krishnamurthy, an entrepreneur, author, and content creator, and Digangana Mukherjee, a mother, a communications professional, writer, and sustainability advocate, and supported by author, marketer, journalist Kirtana Venkatesh, Pragna has engaged in over 100 hours of free counseling to prospective adoptive parents, families, and even children who were adopted in and inter-country. Over the last 1 year, Pragna has conducted over 25 hours of panel discussions and awareness via videos on pertinent topics around adoption, like adoption by men, adoptees' perspective on adoption, adopting children with special needs, adoption support by employers, and older child adoption, to name a few. Their motto is simple: let us all come together to normalize adoption. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Pragna, I extend a warm welcome to each one of you for the first anniversary celebration of Pragna. Let us begin the celebration tonight. May I request our special invite Dechu Banerjee, Sahana Krishnamurthy, Diganta Mukherjee, and Kirtana Venkatesh to please address the group. We'll be doing that in a while. All right. Right. But before that, we also have a 9-year-old Anaka Venkatesh, a student of PSBB Learning Leadership Academy in Bangalore and a disciple of Srimati Sita Lakshmi Govind to sing the invocation. Please be on stage. Thank you.
गणपति की सेवा मंगल में वासी से सब विघ्न तरी तीन लोक के सकल में बता द्वार खड़े हित अर्ज करे जय दुख हरता गजानन जय सुख करता जयाति करता धरता जब की रिद्धि सिद्धि के हरता रिद्धि सिद्धि दक्षिण वाम विराज अरुणमंडिका समर्दन धूप दीप और दिए आरती भक्त करे हित अर्ज करे.
Thank you, Anaka. That was beautiful. Everyone here today has a story to share. Some of us have set upon the journey of adoption. Some of us have been there, done that. But the story is still an integral part of our lives. To begin today's celebration, I take great pleasure in inviting Ajinkya Sontake, who will be reading an excerpt from the story True Lies, authored by Sahana Krishnamurthy. True Lies depict the emotional journey a mother and son goes through after the latter comes to know he is adopted. Please put your hands together for Ajinkya Sontake. And while Ajinkya sets up, let me introduce you to him. Ajinkya is a co-parent, a mother and a father, to a beautiful 1.5-year-old boy. He is co-parenting this bundle of joy with his best friend. He firmly believes that biology is the least of what makes someone a parent. Ajinkya is also a theatre enthusiast and has acted in 2 plays by Venture Theatres Group. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Please stay. Don't go away. No. No. Her pillow was moist, as were her cheeks. The agony and fear had kept her from opening her eyes to see the dawn. The dream reverberated like the waves of the sea, adamant not to get silenced ever. Gaining courage, she looked beside her bed. He was there, still asleep. The pale sunlight was enhancing his round face and the blonde hair that fell across his forehead. She wanted to hug him and feel his presence, but held back the act, afraid of disturbing him in his sound sleep. Wiping her tears, she rose from bed, sore, outside and within. The show must go on. She couldn't stop here. She pulled herself up from the cozy comfort of her bed and walked out to fetch for the Times Now. Oscar was waiting at the door to jump on her lap and lick her all over. Unconditional love, they say. Only souls like Oscar could display it. A treat of kibble and a bowl of water before this little angel, prior to the morning rituals, were one of the little joys she yearned for. It not only satiated her emotions but also reassured her of a soul living with her, showering absolute love. Carrying a cup of warm chamomile tea and the newspaper, she walked in the room, checked on him again, thereby reassuring her subconscious. He will be there, always. After a few years, the winters were harsh, pricking through the warmest of the clothes. The roads had already started clogging with the naked snow all over. She had just returned from work, exhausted yet excited. He was coming home for Christmas, the only time she waited the entire year for. It was celebrations, curbing the loneliness around. She had already ordered for the Christmas tree, presents, decorations, and his favorite cocoa cups. She arranged for everything he would need, from the basics of personal care to luxuries of cologne and Kashmir blanket bought especially for him. He will be home tomorrow noon. She pursed her lips in resentment and murmured, I wish this last day meeting could get cancelled. I'll have to wait till the evening to see him. The day dawned and she gave a last look at all the preparations she had made to surprise him and win his heart. She set out to work, thrilled like a little girl going to get a treat. She could not tear her eyes apart from the two lazy needles on her wrist. It seemed like time had decided to halt forever. The noon had passed, the meeting was far away from conclusion. She recalled his soft, round face with those waves across. They always seemed to be set right, never messy. His honey brown eyes that uttered an entire saga of emotions without an effort were a carnival in themselves. A buzz on her phone brought her back to reality. Oof, another credit card seller. Faced with the message, she quickly deleted and got back to work. Winding up the week's work, she headed to meet him and retreated to Christmas and New Year. She swung open the door and rushed to his room. He wasn't there. She laughed at her stupidity and stepped towards her room. In exhilaration, she had forgotten how much he loved to laze around in her room with the cozy mattress and the blankets that smelled of her saffron cologne. The sight of her room swung on her like an atomic explosion. There were papers thrown around the study table. Her cupboard was wide open. The files were scattered on the bed. He sat near a window with his fists folded tightly, a paper struggling for life in his hands. From the side, she could see his eyes were swollen, red, with rage and tears rolling down his full cheeks, wetting the collar of his crisp blue shirt. She quivered with fear. Does he know? Why? Why did you never tell me? Did you consider me to be that weak that I couldn't handle hearing the truth? Or was I not worth knowing at all? His voice was hoarse. There was anger embodied with misery. She had already walked against the wall, knowing what's coming ahead. Her inner Nu was screaming like a whistle of a train. He'll leave you alone. He'll leave you alone. He knows the truth now. Answer me. Don't you think I deserve to know why you hid this from me all these years? This time he let out his dejection in a weary sob. Yes, it's true. We hid it from you. I hid it from you. But I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't want to lose you. She wept while saying this. She had no other option but to accept and explain the entire history it demanded to know. Yes, my son. We are not related by blood. In that moment, it just felt like the right thing to do. You were just about a month old and we got a reference from the adoption agency. We met you exactly 15 years back on Christmas. You were pink with cold, barely covered with a thin flannel cloth. Your cry pierced me from within. My heart just longed to provide you with the warmth of a mother. I embraced you, and that was the very moment I decided that you are mine. I promised to give you all that a mother would give to her son. I had waited for so long to hold you the way I did that day. We did the paperwork in London with your father's friend, an attorney. She was still trembling like an exposed leaf in the crazy winter. He listened patiently, eyes set on her. For a couple of minutes, both of them remained silent. This silence was darker than any tunnel without lights. It was like ice. There were people who would come and say things that weren't pleasant about bringing you home. In your homecoming ceremony, an old woman blurted, "The day he will know the truth, he will leave you forever." It haunts me till this date. I have lost my parents who were against this adoption. Your father is battling a coma for the last 3 years. And you are the only one who I have. Everyone walked away from my life one by one. I couldn't afford to lose you. I have no courage nor strength to be alone. She could not stop but weep until she completely collapsed on the ground. Her entire world was being sucked into a big black hole. Unending darkness, unending silence. The only vision she saw was of the day when she welcomed him home. Guests around the house, giggling, congratulating, and exchanging gestures. And there were a few who whispered under the breath about the baby, his whereabouts, his appearance fair and blonde, unlike hers. She knew this would happen. People will talk, but she was nowhere near ready for the reality. She repented later about not being bold enough to acknowledge the facts, and then recalled that old woman wrinkled all over, sharp gaze, and bitter mouth, who had spelled this curse on her to be left alone by her loved ones. She opened her eyes, which were still dizzy. Everything around her was white and shiny. There were dim white lights that sparkled like stars in the night. She closed her eyes again and heard a whisper. "Ma." The word jolted her from within as if the fluid of life had been injected into a dead body. She looked across to see her teenage son standing. He was holding her hands. She hardly had any verve to think or ask what had happened or how she ended up there. These doubts felt silly, and as his tight yet soft grip on her hands was enough to assure her, "He will be there with me. I am not alone." That old witch's curse was finally disposed in the black hole. A mighty truth, exposed with care, can bond the souls forever than a secret that would haunt beyond revelations. The boy had found his mother's diary, which read these lines. I was pregnant. I was pregnant with the thoughts of upbringing a baby who is not born from me. I was pregnant with the imagination of my child giggling and running to embrace me. I was pregnant with the seeds of belief to see this day and call my baby mine, who brings me immense joy and a feeling of completeness. Not just that I was pregnant, I was in labor too. The labor of long wait, the labor of uncertainty, the labor of anxiety. I had spent several months waiting for that one day when my baby will call me Ma. Yes, I was pregnant and was in labor pain from the day I decided to be a mother. So here I am, completing my pregnancy term, and out of my labor pain, starting the journey of my motherhood, afar the umbilical cord with my son. Thank you.